Retirement is a brand new season of life, one full of opportunities. Time for adventure and relaxation. It's a chance to discover who you are, how you want to live, and how to find enjoyment and fulfillment in this next stage of life. Join retiree advisor Len Haidachok on a journey to understand what's possible in retirement and how to achieve your life goals, hopes, and dreams for this exciting new chapter. This is MaxAMAZING Your Retirement with Len Haidachok.
So glad you're here with us today for another exciting opportunity to max-amaze your retirement. Len Haidachok is a certified financial planner, practitioner, and certified life coach, and a retiree advisor. He is the founder of Dedicated Financial Services. And on the show today, Len will share his unique perspective on preparing for retirement, especially when it comes to strategies to help you prepare for this next phase of life. Len, so happy to be here with you today. Looking forward to the show.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
It is. We want to focus today on making the most out of financial strategies for retirement. So Len, let's talk about that. What are the main approaches that you use for your clients to help them optimize their financial results?
Well, there's really two ways that people can approach their finances. One of them I call an investment allocation approach. An investment allocation approach is what people have been really using for most of their life to prepare for retirement. It's just saving money.
Okay.
It's growing your wealth. It's
Right.
like having as much as you can for retirement. And while they're going through life, you know, they're spending money, maybe they have different insurance policies in place, but for retirement, it's all about building their wealth. Now, some folks, they keep that approach and they figure whatever they need will be met by having enough money,
Sure.
right? And if you have enough money, it's going to work, right? But some folks, they use a different approach. I call it a disposition allocation approach. And with a disposition allocation approach, what people do is they look at what they want their money to do for them, what results they're looking for. And they're either going to want to have income, and if they want income, they should have an income product. If they're concerned about risk, they would purchase an insurance product to cover that risk.
Okay.
If they want to leave a legacy, they'll purchase a product, a life insurance product to leave a legacy. And everything else is allocated to growth.
Okay.
So there's those two different approaches. Folks who use a growth approach to meet all their needs, that's an investment allocation approach, or a disposition allocation approach where you're trying to meet those specific objectives for specific products you purchase.
Okay, so you're matching up the goals with the tools is kind of what you're talking about.
That's exactly what you do. And the reason that's foreign for some folks, it's those folks who are all about building their wealth.
Sure.
So they're all about building their wealth. They're not thinking, how am I going to get income? They're thinking, I just have enough assets and it's going to work. But folks who are a little more risk averse and want to make sure that they're going to meet their objectives, a disposition allocation approach is something that's more appropriate for them.
Sure. Talk a little bit, Len, about optimizing income from outside sources.
Okay. So when people retire, income is the name of the game, right? You're working, you have money, money's coming in. Now you stop working, well, you still need income, right? You're not getting it from your job. You're getting it from Social Security if you choose to take it, or you may be getting it from pension or both. Now, let's look at Social Security first, because just about everyone qualifies for Social Security. I think everyone knows the longer you wait for starting your Social Security, the more you get the more you get every
delay
month.
the benefits, right?
Exactly. But the question is, while you're delaying your benefits, how are you going to meet your money needs?
Right.
And that's really where the rub is. So for some folks, they say, hey, I can hold off and I will. Some other folks say, I need the money. Well, you know, how am I going to meet my needs?
Right.
And so there's this whole approach that we go through to help folks understand when to take Social Security. Now, can have a discussion with people without knowing their specific circumstances, but what I find is that even though it might make sense for folks to wait on Social Security, they might be somewhat reluctant to do that because if they do, they have to pull money from their own resources and they may not want to do it.
Right, right.
Sometimes what we do is we do an approach where the spouse that has a lower Social Security starts it first, and the spouse with a higher Social Security maybe waits until full retirement age or 70 to maximize that income so that if either spouse passes, that surviving spouse will be entitled to a higher their income amount.
So then you can really get the most out of that. And again, one of those things that, especially when you're dealing with a couple, there are a lot of factors that you want to be thinking about, certainly for things like Social Security and other strategies.
Right, right. And of course, the life expectancy, there's a lot that goes into it. Right. So that cannot be a cookie cutter approach. That's very specific to individuals' needs. And then some folks, they have a pension. You know, it's relatively less common to see that, but the claiming strategy for the pension is also very important because people need to be thinking about if the spouse who's getting the pension passes, how's that going to affect the survivor spouse? And sometimes I see what happens is it's taking without a survivor benefit, and it leaves the surviving spouse, if the surviving spouse or the non-pension spouse outlives the pension spouse, there's an income gap that might not be able to be filled.
Right, right. Just something that we really don't want to lose sight of. Talk a little bit more, Lynn, about these different allocation approaches. How do you use this investment allocation and this disposition allocation approach to supplement some of those income needs that you might have?
Yeah, that's great. So when you have an income gap, you have really a couple choices. One is you can structure investments in such a way using an investment allocation approach where you either have income generating assets making up that difference, or allocating your assets with different time frames. I call it timeline strategy. We have a short-term, medium-term, and a long-term investment, and you pull money from the actual account value. And then we supplement over time as people age. That's one approach.
Okay, so again, at the end of the day, though, we have to figure out a way to structure our income so it lasts as long as we need it to last. We've talked before on this show about how retirements today are potentially lasting decades. This is a very important conversation to have when you're trying to allocate your money.
It's essential, and especially folks who are more risk averse and don't want to take the risk and maybe are a little bit short on money to meet their needs for entire life. Sometimes we use a disposition allocation approach and we use an income annuity. Income annuities are the only vehicles that can guarantee lifetime income. We have to use them sparingly because if people don't need income, it doesn't make sense to have an income annuity. So those types of annuities we use specifically when we have an income gap. We want to make sure people are not going to outlive their money, and they also have a long life expectancy.
Right, and certainly with you, there is no one-size-fits-all answer. You do not take this where everybody gets the same type of tool or strategy. You really take this on a case-by-case basis.
I have to, otherwise, quite frankly, I think it's irresponsible to put financial products in place that aren't suitable. That doesn't make sense at all.
Important insights there, Lynn. Appreciate that. Coming up next, Lynn will talk about how you can meet some of your other financial objectives. But first, here's how you can reach the team at Dedicated Financial Services. Stay with us. We'll be back.
Where would you go if you could go anywhere? What would you do if you could do anything? How would you fill your days? Who would you spend them with? When you retire, what will you explore? Let us show you how a complete retirement plan can open your world to endless possibilities. Explore your retirement.
You have a club for every scenario. A driver for the long holes. Wedges to get you over the hazards. And a putter for when you need a touch of finesse. What about your retirement? Will you have enough to play the back nine? Call to set your 15-minute phone visit today and let's find out. Get a second set of eyes on your retirement plan.
Everybody needs a plan. If Carol's ever going to retire, she needs a plan. So does Bob, if he ever wants to catch a break. Jim and Susan, they need a plan to keep the beat going. And Puddles over there? Yeah, he's going to need a plan too. You? Yeah, you probably need a plan. Whoever you are, whatever you do, you can use a plan for retirement. We can help.
Thanks for joining us today on MaxAMAZIng Your Retirement with Lynn Haydachok. Today's show is all about optimizing your financial strategies in retirement. Now, it is important when people retire that they protect themselves from risks. So, Lynn, talk about how do you use investment and disposition allocation approaches to help protect your clients from some of the different risks?
Well, I'll start by saying I think we all know what the potential risks are in retirement. The biggest ones are if someone, let's say, has a pension and they pass away and that income doesn't continue to the surviving spouse, there might be a risk there. Okay. And the other one is long-term care or health care needs or health care expenses. Those are really the biggest categories of risk that people have to protect themselves from.
And these are difficult conversations to have when you look at the idea of losing a spouse and an income source and then some sort of catastrophic healthcare need or illness. Difficult conversations to have, but so important, Lynn, that we talk about some of the strategies to mitigate those risks.
Yes, I call it the financial reality. You know, we all, we always want to hope for the best, but we also always need to plan for the worst.
Right. Right.
And unfortunately, folks hope for the best and just keep it there.
Right, right. Well, and it's just more comfortable to hope that the best will happen. But talk about some of the ways, because we can't predict the future. We can't know what's going to happen. Talk about some of the ways that we can plan for some of these things, even though they're unknown to us.
Well, when we look at how people usually do that, they work and accumulate their wealth, and then they retire, then they have a chunk of wealth.
Okay.
The biggest risk that people have been accustomed to thinking about over their life is someone passing away. But when they were in that stage of life, they may have had younger children, a long life expectancy, that if someone were passed, there'd be a long period of time that there'd be a shortage of income. So when folks retire, or maybe when they get closer to retire and they don't have household dependence, all the children, it's possible that life insurance may not be as necessary because there might be significant wealth.
Sure.
So if you have significant wealth, that might make up the difference if someone passes, right? Because someone passes, if all they have is a Social Security, you have a husband and wife or two spouses, the lower of the two will cease for the survivor and they'll continue the higher of the two.
Okay.
But we also have the risk that some folks may have a pension. And when we have a pension, sometimes that pension is taken out in such a way that there is no survivor benefit. So if the pensioner passes, the survivor doesn't have any income continuing.
Right, and that is so important when especially when you're talking about a couple or a family situation, making sure your loved ones will be okay. It's such an important conversation to have. And Lynn, when we're talking about some of these different strategies, if perhaps we already have a life insurance policy, can we get an analysis of that? Do you look at what people currently have and maybe make recommendations for any changes they might make?
It's really funny. We actually, I would say, spend more time undoing life insurance policies than putting life insurance policies in place.
Oh, really?
Because a lot of times people, they don't need any anymore.
Okay.
And they may have a life insurance policy. I can't even tell you how many times someone may have had a policy that their parents took out on them. They had a policy for like literally 60, 70 years.
Wow.
And it's a death benefit of like, I'm making this up, like $15,000 and a cash value of $13,000. And I say, how much life insurance do you have? And they'll say I have $15,000. I say, no, you only have $2,000 because the $13,000 is cash. You're only getting an extra $2,000. So what we need to do, we need to look at what the risk is, someone passing, and that risk is loss of income.
Right.
If there's a loss of income that cannot be absorbed by the wealth, then we have to have a financial conversation about life insurance. And a lot of times people, they'll just say, hey, I'm too old for life insurance, or I don't need life insurance. And it's not how old you are. It's what is your financial situation, right? Now, your stage in life is tied to that. And, if you are in your retirement years, especially if you're later in your retirement years, you don't have that much life left ahead of you if someone passes.
Right,
So you may not need as much life insurance, but there's always a conversation to review all the financial instruments to make sure how they're meeting your needs and if they're still appropriate for what you need.
And as we talk a little bit about some of these different financial instruments or financial tools, we do tend to have more emotional reactions about the financial tools that are out there. People have strong feelings about life insurance or annuities. Talk a little bit about that whole idea of removing the emotional aspect when you're helping someone analyze what tools they need to mitigate the risks that they might have.
Well, the emotion is a very important part of it, and I'll say emotion should be an important part of it.
Okay.
Money is driven by emotions,
Yeah.
right? Why do people want to spend money on a trip? Because they enjoy the emotion of going away someplace. Why do people have life insurance? Because of the emotion of security. So emotions are always relevant, but we have to separate ourselves from the emotional state to the reality, what the risk is and what the need is.
Yeah. And a lot of times, Lynn, when we're trying to mitigate these risks, a lot of advisors might lean to the same product over and over again, or they might be very investment oriented, for example. Talk a little bit about how your approach is a little bit different than that.
Again, it has to go to what their clients' needs are. But in our profession, there's really two classes of industry, or there are two industries. There's the investment industry, which is securities, and then there's the insurance industry, two separate industries. And what happens is a lot of folks who are in the securities, they ignore the insurance part of it. And that often passes over to their clients, so the clients have just an investment strategy and don't recognize the need to cover risk. And the biggest one is long-term care.
Right, right. Talk a little bit about, Lynn, just some of the conversations you might have with people if they are concerned about the long-term care need, because it's an awful lot of people who are likely to be impacted by that situation where one of the two members of a couple is going to need long-term care.
Well, I'll just first say that long-term care is the biggest unfunded risk that folks have. And a lot of folks will say, oh, I'm self-funded, which is code for I don't have a long-term care policy, but they don't truly have enough assets to cover that risk. Now, long-term care is expensive, and a lot of folks don't get it because they don't want to be paying into something where they'll never cash out on it, right? And that's not the way to view risks and insurance. The way to view it is that if I have that incident happen or I don't have, if it doesn't happen, I'll be in the same financial situation if I have the insurance. But the point is, it's very expensive. So there are different strategies to cover that risk. One is to put assets into an irrevocable trust. It has to be in that trust for 5 years before it's protected. You also can't put IRA money into it. You have to cash it out. The other way is just to have enough asset base, and if you have enough asset base, then you're okay there as well. But sometimes, quite frankly, you just have to hope for the best. Sometimes people don't have an option to plan for it.
Right. It just sounds like it's an area to get some guidance on, because it can get pretty complicated, especially if you're trying to do this on your own. So some important insights there, Lynn. Here's how you can reach Lynn and the team at Dedicated Financial Services. Stay tuned. We'll be back.
Your first day of retirement. What will you wake up to? Freedom? Time? Adventure? Your ideal retirement doesn't just have to come alive in your dreams. Awaken to your new reality. Awaken your spirit, your vision. It's not a dream. It's your next chapter, your future, and it's in reach. Next generation retirement doesn't happen by accident. Plan for your bright future. Awaken to what's possible.
You have a club for every scenario. A driver for the long holes. Wedges to get you over the hazards. And a putter for when you need a touch of finesse. What about your retirement? Will you have enough to play the back nine? Call to set your 15-minute phone visit today, and let's find out. Get a second set of eyes on your retirement plan.
Everybody needs a plan. If Carol's ever going to retire, she needs a plan. So does Bob, if he ever wants to catch a break. Jim and Susan, they need a plan to keep the beat going. And Puddles over there, yeah, he's going to need a plan too. You? Yeah, you probably need a plan. Whoever you are, whatever you do, you can use a plan for retirement. We can help.
Thanks for joining us today on Max Amazing Your Retirement with Lynn Haydachok. Lynn is sharing his insights on how to optimize financial strategies for your retirement. So Lynn, let's talk about how do you use this investment and disposition allocation, these two approaches for your clients to help them with legacy goals.
Legacy, I think, is somewhat understated in terms of its importance and the time in life. Legacy is something that some of my clients find very, very important to help the next generation. Some will say, I already gave everything I'm going to give to my children. I paid for the college, I paid for the wedding, and now it's all about me, which is fine.
Right.
But some folks, they want to leave a legacy, and I respect that, and I want to plan toward that.
Right. So really there's no wrong answers here. The only wrong answer, I imagine, is not thinking about it and just assuming your wishes will be carried out at the end of the day.
Or I would say another wrong thing is to do what someone else wants you to do, and it's not your life goals, hopes, and dreams.
Yeah.
But the legacy part is important for some folks. But legacy isn't just about leaving money when you pass. It also includes gifting.
Okay.
And I do encourage my clients to gift if they're in a financial position to do that and they're inclined to do so.
Right.
Because it does two things. One, it allows their heirs to benefit from their money when they may need to. And also there's a real joy in experiencing that pleasure of giving.
Right.
That's an important component for folks
Right.
who are mindful to leave a legacy.
Right. And for those who choose to go about gifting while they're still living, they do get that joy of seeing the look on their grandchild's face when they receive that gift. So it's a different approach, and certainly something when you talk about the ideas of fulfillment and enjoyment that can check off a couple of those boxes as well.
Absolutely. But there are some folks also who want to leave money when they pass.
Sure.
And the fact of the matter is a lot of people are going to leave a lot of wealth when they pass, because even though people say it's all about me, because people are afraid to run out of money, there's a big cushion. So there's different strategies that we have to put in place to at least consider to put in place in clients leaving a legacy.
So when we're talking about legacy and the idea of leaving something to our heirs or charitable giving, there's always a tax conversation that needs to be had, because I think whenever we are trying to accomplish those legacy goals, Lynn, one thing that we want is to be tax efficient and to be mindful of the tax impacts as well, right?
Absolutely. So the biggest tax we have to be concerned about is really an income tax. The estate tax and the inheritance tax usually is not an issue. It's really the income tax that people are left with. And if you leave IRA money, that's going to be a big tax hit. If it's non-qualified money that has appreciated in value, we have something we call an increase in cost basis, where appreciated assets, there's no capital gains to be paid on them. And so that's very important. So it really depends on what the objectives are, but certainly taxes are a vital consideration. But let me also talk about the whole idea between disposition and the investment allocation approach.
Sure.
So when folks have an investment allocation approach, their view of leaving a legacy is whatever's left is left. And it's not to dismiss it. There might be a lot left. They just don't want to give it before they pass away.
Right.
And they don't want to be purchasing insurance products as part of a legacy. Folks who use a disposition allocation approach have a mindset that they definitely want to leave certain assets to their heirs. And so they say, if I purchase a life insurance policy for so much to cover each one of my children when I pass, I have the freedom to spend all my money, which they always had, but because they want to leave a legacy, they can feel free to spend all their money and leave nothing from their asset base, because they know when they pass, there'll be a life insurance policy kicking in, and that'll provide a legacy.
Right. Again, no wrong answers here. We just want to make sure that we have thought things through and put the plans in place to have those wishes, to have our wishes accomplished. Talk a little bit about, Lynn, you talk about these apexes when it comes to how you think about our financial strategies. With legacy, that is an impact apex, is that right?
That's exactly right. Impact is one of the 3 apexes we have in the MaxAMAZING Your Retirement strategy. The first one is the experiences and relationships. The second one is the accomplishment. The third one is the impact. Impact can be done with how we live our lives. And we also can have an impact with our money. That impact can be done through gifting while we're alive. It can be in a legacy when we pass away. But we want to really broaden our approach or our view of our impact and not just money. Because if our impact is strictly about money, how we're doing our life day to day does not tie into the impact that we want to have. So if we have a cause that we believe in, something that's important to us, yeah, sure, it'd be nice to fund that when we pass, but it would be also nice to be engaged in that while we're living, to have that tie to our identity and our life purpose. So what we're doing day by day is purposeful to the cause that we have a concern about.
Right. Lynn, today's show has been all about optimizing retirement strategies, optimizing financial strategies for our retirement on things like income and mitigating risks. We were just talking about legacy. What is your big takeaway for our viewers here on the show today?
It's always going to go back to folks being intentional with what they want. One of the reasons I mentioned life insurance is something we undo is because we look at why something was put in place, whether it's a life insurance product or any instrument or any financial strategy. What is the reason behind it? And does that reason still apply? So if it's a life insurance policy, or if it's an income policy, or if it's a certain type of investment, why do we have it? What is the goal that we're trying to achieve with it? Do the goals still apply? And is there maybe a better way to accomplish that, right? So it's always a work in process.
Okay, very important insights. And again, I think, Lynn, probably a good idea to get another set of eyes, get somebody like you to review some of the things that we've done before we go off and try to put some of these things in place on our own.
Absolutely.
So, all right, thanks so much for your time here today, and thank you for watching our show today. Here's how you can reach Lynn and the team at Dedicated Financial Services. For Lynn Haydachak, I am Jen Rezac, wishing you a great day and a MaxAMAZING retirement, and we'll see you next time.